Oh, hi. I'm Bob Snodgrass. Welcome to Snodgrass Family Glass. This is where most of my family group works. I've got a daughter's workstation, my son-in-law's, my Oliver, my Oliver, he's an apprentice.
I used to sell my work in Austin at a shop, and I told the owner that I was going to move to Eugene, and he said that I was going to starve to death because of all of the competition here.
I don't know, when I got into it, there was just a couple other guys.
Bob was the only person doing a craft that was totally different than anybody else's craft. There was nobody else to my knowledge at that time that I could go learn glass blowing from.
Not really anybody so much around Bob's house was blowing glass.
I see these people that have only been blowing glass for a little while just like blow up and like understand way more than I've understood.
There was like this, pretty much like an explosion of glass blowers.
Not sure how they understood it. I guess they're standing on the backs of everybody else that figures stuff out.
It was, cool to see and to be there to see like this movement like born.
And at that time, it was mainly Eugene and the Corvallis scene, and the Corvallis scene spurred a whole bunch of different styles of glass.
The first trick they learned was something I don't even know.
It seemed a little tougher, like to sell your glass, and after that.
I feel I'm so far behind. So yeah, it's all inspiring to me.
There were so many more people doing it by '96, and it just the mood kind of changed and kind of felt like, oh, glass is dead, I'm going to go get a regular job.
It's amazing what people are accomplishing, and I'm just trying to keep up and stay relevant. That's like my goal, is to stay relevant until I can't work anymore.
Kind of ironic that I got Bob to move here in 1990 and that it ended up being kind of a glass mecca.
I think now we're into going on 4 years, almost 5 years, that is how long he's been working here.
Then not long after that, I was selling glass to him again, and he said, oh yeah, Ben here's from Eugene. And I was like, oh, holy smokes, nice to meet you. And he said, when you get to Eugene, give me a call and I'll show you around.
Here's an Oliver gadget where he just took some conduit and a couple hose clamps. Pretty phenomenal.
And I didn't realize that he was an apprentice of Bob's. And so when I got to Eugene, I tried to call him, and I didn't know anyone or anything here. So I was kind of like lost in a strange land.
I've been blowing glass since 1971. I learned from a fellow that was an apprentice scientific glass blower. Somewhere around 95, I started a small business selling tools to glass blowers.
Bob chose tools in the industry that worked for the borosilicate glass for what we were doing, and there really wasn't any tool manufacturer that specialized in borosilicate tools. They just had soft glass tools.
He had like tool catalogs that, we didn't know where to get anything or how to start.
I helped Bob sell tools for a couple of years, and that helped introduce me to an industry outside of just our little circles that we have around here.
And my main plan was to be able to acquire a lot of tools to try out.
He was the master of repurposing. I guess that's what they call it nowadays, recycling or repurposing. He wouldn't actually get most of his glass blowing tools through a glass manufacturer. He'd go to Goodwill and repurpose things.
I met Ben, and he invited me over one time, and that was when I really met Bob. And I sat down and I talked with him, and I showed him some of my my woodblock prints that I had made into note cards. And Bob, being patron of the arts himself, was like, oh, how much for one of each? And it's like, I don't know, whatever you want to give me.
Bob, was so into making his own things that's how he came up with the fuming technique that we have nowadays, was for him mixing his own color.
How I got here to where I am right now was fuming.
The technique that Bob uses is what's called whole metal deposition fuming, and that's because he's taking a whole metal and melting it and depositing it on the glass.
You know, there was just all clear glass pipes. You know, before Bob Snodgrass, you know, came up with fuming, you know, was a happy accident.
He's definitely not the first pipe maker. We were always buying pipes back in the day from other people, and they had other ways of getting silver on there, but it wasn't the same. Wasn't the same feeling. It wasn't the same from the same heart.
He was mixing some color up, striped it on the side of a piece of silver popped out because it was not in the matrix of the glass yet, and actually made a yellow stain going up the side of the piece.
He had never did that on purpose before, but somebody had said, "Oh, I really like the blue effects that you put into my piece," and he was like, "Oh, well, I must have used like, you know, some cobalt blue or something."
And he gave that piece or sold that piece to somebody. They came back a week or two later, or sometime in the future later, I don't remember exactly how long he told me, and they dragged him outside and say, "Hey, look at this." Then it was blue, and that was because they put a black background inside of it.
He saw the little point of the little ball of silver where it sprayed, and the light bulb went off, you know, and that was in like 1982.
After in the creation of fuming, that was not a written book at all.
I don't know, Bob's crazy. He even came up with that whole thing, like fuming. It's just amazing to me how it's like become such a big thing.
Mixing the fuming in with the glass and getting the color background changing.
You use silver on glass. You pretty much probably learn indirectly from Bob how to do that method.
I kind of think of it like spray painting with the flame.
So he very graciously handed me a big stack of money. Well, you know, 30 bucks or something. And that was like my first kind of experience, like hanging out and talking with him.
And fuming is the vaporization of a metal, making a room air pressure deposition. I can boil a piece of steel, boil a piece of silver at the tip of my flame and catch the vapors on a cooler piece of glass rotating out in front.
I came by again later on and told him, you know, I'd really like to learn something from you, you know. I'd really like to watch you work sometime, and I don't really have any money, but I've got like a truck and some tools, and I know how to do some stuff. Maybe if you need some stuff done around your place, you let me come over and, you know, work for you for free. And he's like, well, go ahead and put your name and phone number on that chalkboard over there, and I'll get a hold of you when I need something done.
Catching those vapors, if I go and put another layer of glass over top of it, those vapors are embedded in the glass. Now that could be gold like I have over here, or silver.
I went over to the chalkboard and scrawled my name about that long, my name and phone number, and about that tall, and took off and didn't hear from him for months and months. And I sat in my garage working on getting good at what I knew how to do with glass.
I want to make something. It's the way I feel anyhow. That's a carbonizing flame, just plain propane. Add a little bit of oxygen. Glass likes to be heated by radiant heat more than anything. The radiant glow is not shocking to the glass. And I'm going to step on the foot pedal.
I didn't come back for about 6 months, and when I came back, my name and number were still scrawled on the chalkboard. It just hadn't gotten back to me, and I brought him a framed woodblock print of a sunflower I had made, and
I got a nice globe, and what I'm going to do is boil some silver. That little ball of metal right there is going to be addressing the point of the blue cone.
I told him that I, thought that true nobility in life comes from helping others to ease their suffering, and that all of the jobs around the world that were created by this industry that he had kind of created, he had really eased a lot of suffering, and I appreciated that, and I wanted him to have a token of my appreciation.
Boil the metal. I can dip it in and out. And do you catch those little sparks? Each time it dips into the flame, it's more excited and it boils another layer. I'm getting quite a bit of silver on the outside of that bubble.
And he said, "Oliver, you're one of those people that I've been meaning to get a hold of. See, my daughter, she's pregnant and she's gonna have a baby pretty soon, and they need a little, their roof leaks. You think you could come over and help fix the roof?" Oh, absolutely. So every day after that, I showed up first thing in the morning and I worked myself to exhaustion, working on replacing the roof on their house.
Now I'm going to pop a hole in it, put my finger over the end just as I go into the flame. Don't want to put that up against your lips and blow anytime there's a void that's opened. You can have trapped gases in there and add enough oxygen to make it a combustible mix. It'll backfire at you. Now I'm just spraying silver into the center hole too. We're about done with that part of it.
Eventually, Bob invited me into his shop and like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna do something and maybe you wanna check it out." Absolutely, that's why I came here. And so we'd hang out every once in a while and he'd have me into his shop and show me some stuff.
So next I'm going to collapse that ball, try to keep the air out of it as far as I want to turn this into a piece of solid glass.
Eventually he was like, "Oliver, I'm thinking about doing an apprentice sort of thing with you." And I was like, "Yes, success, I'm in."
Just wind it up.
He taught me how to make millies. It's one of the first things that we did, and it was pretty difficult to wrap my brain around it. But eventually I did. And now that's what I'm making right now.
We're about to stretch this out into a rod. So that's just silver fuming onto a small bubble. Globe.
Showed me how to do some fuming and make some silver white. It's a color that we make, and some different fuming techniques. I didn't really get it right away. Took me a while to really kind of understand some of the nuance to it.
And then we wait just a few seconds. Whichever's thicker, I move to the top side. As the heat rising, as I stretch that, the hot air will be carrying heat to whatever's thicker. Now the other end's thicker, and wait for a second. You got to really be straight up and down at this point.
It was frustrating not really knowing how to do this for a long time, because I'm good at a lot of things, because I've put a lot of time and effort and energy and thought into learning how to do stuff, but glass is particularly challenging.
Lock your elbows down to your side, because if I have this out and it breaks, I'm going to end up impaling myself. If I have it locked against my side, not pulled down, just hold my arm, less likely to get injured.
It's really frustrating sucking at something so bad for so long in order to, get good at it. And eventually it pays off, perseverance and patience. But it doesn't mean it's not frustrating.
Because at one point or another, when you pull on a piece of glass or push on a piece of glass, it'll fail. Could have got scratched on your table, could have had some kind of minor imperfection.
He lets you make mistakes, and that's really important. I often said that, sooner or later, I'll just run out of ways to make mistakes, but in the meantime.
Okay, let's see, I'm going to draw a piece of this section down. About 3 millimeters. That's a little thick, but that'll do. Oh, I got room. There's a hole in the brick.
A lot of the things, the ways that he blows glass were things that I was discouraged from doing from other people who taught me before him, because there's a certain way that you're supposed to do it, and he a lot of what he does is kind of what you would do instinctively.
But the interesting part of that's going to happen right about here, and we're going to do it outside of the flame.
And just kind of letting stuff go where it wants to go a lot of the time. One of the things that really interested me in Bob's techniques is that he makes his own color.
He hasn't really touted that flag in a long, long time because there's so much commercial color out there.
There was a huge demand for colored glass, colored borosilicate glass, and not many people that made it, or not many companies that made it.
There was a company called Corex, and that was glazes that were put down a borosilicate tube and then pulled out, and some of them worked, some of them didn't. It wasn't real traditional, and it was expensive.
Like Glass Alchemy, they found a niche, and they made better colors that were straighter and rounder than the other guys, and they made great colors.
When I met Bob, North Star had just started, but he wasn't aware of it.
We used to drive up to Portland and go to see Troutman at North Star.
And his techniques at the time were very crude.
He let us dig through the bins of color.
He took soft glass marbles that were green and mixed them up into borosilicate until they were compatible and made it green that way.
We had to drive up to Portland, go to high purity chemical to get cases of glass, and then go to North Star to get color.
A copper red.
So you had to drive to Portland to even get your materials to do it,
Cobalt from cobalt oxide.
If he started in 1971, that's like 10 years of like clear work with minimal color.
So Bob made a silver white.
Silver white, which he still makes today. It's a great color. It's like kind of a milky silvery white.
For a long time when I first started blowing glass, it was like the difference between different, amateurish glass blowers was like the colors they used, and it was like, well, you didn't make that color. That's not really, making a purple spoon instead of a blue spoon isn't art.
And nowadays we have so much commercial color. A lot of people make just straight commercial color pipes. They get uglier as you smoke out of them if you don't clean them every day.
The first time I ever saw mushrooms, they were done out of soft glass by a fellow named Kai Hepburn. And when I went to ask him how they were done, I kind of went, ha, ha. And he started laughing because he knew what I was going to say. He wasn't telling.
You're not really putting yourself into it as much as like when you fume something, you get different levels and nuances. There's a lot more to it than just like blue or red.
I'm driving from California to Atlanta in my bus. There's a lot of blank territory between point A and point B. That was before I found out about hot peppers when you can't stay awake and you're driving.
In the beginning, glass blowers had like the colors that they made themselves or were able to scrap out of old television sets.
Would ask myself, how were those mushrooms made? And I rehearsed it in my head that, well, it seems like if you push in and it'll hit the cooler glass, it'll spread, and maybe that'll work.
I'm into is like artists grinding their own pigment, making their own paint, like that's art to me, starting from nothing and creating great beauty.
But this guy, he had mushrooms that had little white flakes on the cap and gills underneath and a collar or a ring around the mushroom before it went down the stem.
Instead of like starting with a prefab paint by numbers kit, it's like I want to play with it. I want to make it, mine. I want it to be like I want it to be interesting.
He wasn't going to tell me, so I had to figure it out on my own. And I came up with a way you do it in boro. Which is just the opposite of how you do it in soft glass, but pretty cool. I'm going to reach around there.
I see such visions in my head, like the heavenly host of angels, like just incredible beauty, you know, that I want to share with the world. And
I got this cool little tool. Oh, that's pretty nice looking. Big one in front of the small, or a small one in front of the big one, I mean.
I see the images dancing below the surface on the glass, and that's what I want, and that's what Bob has to offer, is something deeper than just making pipes.
And actually, in all reality, this would be stronger than if I close the loop, but I can't sell those. This is one piece of glass. Now I'm going to change it into 2 pieces of glass.
It's a lot more than just like making something that's just a thing. It's spiritual. So there's a shamanic element to the mad scientist alien we know as Bob Snodgrass.
So stress-wise, this is more vulnerable. Than if I would have kept that loop from touching down. Now the thickest part is what I want to heat. I'm going to wait. I don't want to make a lot of marks in there. But I want the thicker part to be the area that's stretched.
What I make is going to be part of the fossil record, you know? And so I want it to mean something. It's not just, you know, it's not just a pipe.
Yeah, I'd say that's ready to go in the kiln. One mushroom in front of the other, really cool.
Give me 1 second. Nice. Show off.
It's nice that it happens like that sometimes.
Well, we made a bunch of millies together. We shared worked out some designs and put them together, and that was kind of how he taught me. Working with big glass, big, heavy, hot piece of glass is definitely sorry. I didn't expect that to happen. Sure, I'm glad it did how it did. Let me throw this in the kiln. Perfect.
Oh, one of the things about glass blowing is knowing when to stop. It's so easy to go and do something on and on and on, and goes over the hill and down.
But having the people here and helping us out has been wonderful. The students helped us along. It helped motivate Bob. I think glass blowers need each other. They need time together. And this gave them the opportunity. We were like mom and dad. We get phone calls from parents. How's my son? How's my daughter? Are they doing okay? They never call home. I said, well, that's okay. They're just busy. And I figured it's just kids. And I looked back at my life and how often did I call my parents? Not enough. It made a difference. But they all turned out great. All the kids. It was pretty amazing being around them. It felt like it kept us young. And we never got really old. But we're getting old. We know it. And we want to quit, but we can't quit. We just can't quit. It won't stop. So we just keep going. I don't think Bob ever wants to quit, really. He's trying to think. We want to get in a motorhome and do a little traveling around. And he always brings up trying to figure out a way to put glass in there. I'd like to travel a little bit without the glass. You know, I like to see museums of glass and things, but I just like to do it without the glass. Without the need that you're going to do glass. And that's your main objective. I just feel that sometimes I need a break. Go someplace where there's not. It's been beautiful though. Bob's such a wonderful person. I love him so much.